Hello, welcome back to GOT. Today we're going to talk about the Automatic V5 versus the V3. Is it worth the upgrade? We're going to talk about the good and the bad, so you want to make sure to stick around to the end so you get all the information. Let's go. So a little backstory on the Automatic V3. I only got it because the OnePlus Open stopped making their phone. So I did all the research I could to try to find out what is a big competitor out there with Oppo and these other foldables right now, and that's when I discovered the Automatic V3. I actually did a video describing all the different phones that were available at the time. The Honor Magic V3 sounded like the best one to me, so I went ahead and researched, and I was able to get it for $1,000. Practically new in the box, had all the accessories. And when buying it from eBay, I was able to actually tack on a full year's of insurance on the phone, so I didn't have to worry about it. And I got to say, that's one of the best purchases I made of a phone. So then after using this for a few months, found out that they were coming out with the Automatic V5 and thought, well, this looks like a great upgrade because of all the specs. So we're going to talk about those. And first, we're going to look at the difference between these two. So when we look at these closely, we can see here they're pretty much the same size. Let's turn that around and you can see they look almost identical in size. The difference, of course, the V5 having that nice design here on the hinge. I don't know if you can see it in the camera or not, but it's a pretty cool looking design. But other than that, they look the same. It's hard to really tell the difference between the two. And as far as the feel goes, they feel really close to the same. So there's not a whole lot of difference there. They both have that nice rounded edge around them. The V5 is a little more squared off, where this is fully rounded around the edge. But when you get to the full edges or the sides of the phone, you can see it's really curved. I know it seems like I'm struggling to explain, but you know, it's squared off here, but not like the Z Fold 7 where it has sharp edges. The edges are rounded, where on this one, it's rounded all the way around. Now, when you look at these cameras, there's a slight difference here. When you've got the cameras side by side here, you can see that the V5 is a little bit thicker than the V3 with the camera lens, but there's a reason for that. That's because the cameras are a little bit better, and we'll talk about those specs in a minute as well. Now, as far as specs goes, this is considered a 9.2 millimeters when closed, and this one is considered a 9.0 millimeters. So just 0.2 thinner than the V3, and that's because this is the gold model. The white version of the V5 is the only one that's 8.8 millimeters thin closed, so it's a little bit thinner. But I gotta tell you, from 9.2 to 8.8, I don't really think you see a whole lot of difference, and they look pretty much the same. You're not going to see a whole lot of difference in these phones. So I wouldn't allow the thinness of a phone to determine whether you get one or not, or even upgrade. And for those that want to see it open, we'll go ahead and do that for you. We'll open them both up and show them side by side here. So then when you look here at both of them opened up, they look pretty much the same. The black actually looks a little thinner because it is black and a little more rounded, but as we know, according to the specs, the V5 is a little bit thinner. And I'm just noticing that the speakers on the different side here on the V5 from the V4, and when we flip them over, is it the same? They're on the same side. So what that basically means is on the V3, the speakers were on the same side, as you can see here. So if you're holding it, you're going to muffle both speakers and you're going to lose sound. Where on the V5, the improvement of putting the speakers on opposite ends, you're covering only one speaker if you're holding it like this or holding it like this. So those of you gamers that really like to hear your sound, this is the better one as far as that goes. Now let's go ahead and take a real close look at how thin these phones are. So now it's time for my famous level test here. We take the level here and we put it on both of them, and you can see right here that the bubble is actually leaning towards the V3. If you look at here, my front camera, you can see it a lot better here. It's leaning towards the V3. And if you put a little pressure on the level on this one side, you can see how it leans up, and you can see the gap there under the, or above the V5. So you can see it's just a little bit thinner when you level out that bubble. And then when you put up here on the cameras, that's where everything changes. Look at that bubble just so swiftly moves to the other side. And again, of course, if you level it out, you can see the gap there underneath or above the camera here on the V3. So that tells us that the Honor Magic V5 is thicker on the cameras, but thinner on the casing. So not a whole lot of difference, but you can't really see it here. in the images. Now, both of these phones work the same, where if you just barely touch, they just turn right on with the fingerprint reader. So they are very fast on both of them. And they both have a very similar look to them, as you can see here. And the size is almost identical. But according to the specs, if you look here, the Honor Magic V5 is slightly taller and slightly wider, but you can't really notice it. But when you look at the external screen in diameter, they're both rated the same at 6.43 inches in diameter. And I can tell you, holding them in the hand, I really don't feel any differences. When you open them up and put them side by side, you have the V3 is actually a 7.92 in diagonal, where this is a 7.95 in diagonal. And you can't really see it. You can't tell between the two of them. And for me, you know, using them both, I don't really notice whatsoever any difference. Now, both of these phones are supposed to have a 5000 nit screen on the outside, and on the inside, it's supposed to also be a 5000 nit on the Honor Magic V5. So when you got two of these side by side and you turn the brightness up, it should be a little brighter, but you can't really see it here on screen. And here's my view outside. As you can see, I've got them both right in direct sunlight. It's pretty bright out, and that's turned right towards the sun. So you can see they're still really both clear, and they're about compatible with one another. Now, they both do have an anti-reflective screen protector on the front of them, which does really well. I think the Honor Magic V5 might be a little bit more reflective, and you can see the crease just a tad bit more than on the V5, but they both look really good outside. I think the V5 is just a slight bit brighter, as you can see there in this image. So there you go. In the bright sunlight, they both are very good, and I don't think you have a problem with either one. Now, looking at these displays, you can see that they both very much the same. The difference is this one's got a Snapdragon Gen 3 in it versus a Snapdragon Elite chip in the V5. But other than that, you really don't see a whole lot of performance difference. They're both just as smooth as one another, and I enjoy both of them equally. And I got to tell you, there's not a whole lot to say here. I mean, they both do stackable widgets if you want to do that. They both have the exact same software, so you can set them up the exact same way. The only difference is that Elite chip. And even when you look at these cameras, they're identical, the same setup, they look the same. There's really no difference in them whatsoever. So even the V3 has gotten an update on AI, so it kind of matches the V5 there. Let's take a look at the photo gallery and do some editing here so you can see the differences or the non-differences. So here you go. So here's a portrait shot I did on both of them, and you could see that they both came out pretty much the same. I think that the Honor Magic V5 does shoot a little bit brighter than the V3 at times, and you can see that in this image a little bit. You can see my shirt here's a little more lit up than the black here on the Honor Magic V3. And as you can see, they both look pretty good here in this portrait shot, thanks to a viewer in my previous video telling me how what I needed to do to get this bokeh to work on these phones. And I'll show that in another video where I do some how-tos. So let's go ahead and go into editing on both of these. And you can see there is a little bit of difference. You've got one thing missing over here. You have AI cutout in the V5 that you don't have in the V3. And I'm not quite sure why that is, because I've been able to do that before, where you take an image and you hold it and see how it lines around me. It's going to cut me out, and I can save it like that, and now it's its own image. And you should be able to do the same over here, is hold, and it should go around me. Yeah, they're both that's going to do a cutout. So if you save here, and then if you go to files, under cutouts right there it is. You know, it's on both. So you can see they both do the cutout. So I'm not quite sure what that cutout is in editing. Let's check it out. So go here to edit and AI cutout. So if I tap that, what's it going to do? Okay, it's thinking, and it's going to do some automatic. Okay, well, it did the same thing. Okay, you can see right there, it's outlined me so it can cut me out. I don't understand why you need to do that when you have it already. So that's not a feature, I think, that's an advantage on the Honor Magic V5, because you could do the cutout on the V3. You just have to do it before you go into edits, because if you long press here, it won't do anything here. And same on this side, it won't do anything long pressing here. You have to click these. So I'm not quite sure why the AI cutout is there. But here's something I wanted to show you. It's on outpainting, which is really nice. Let's say I want to get me a little more centered in the photo here, because I am not centered. And what it does is it adds this empty space here, and it's about the same on both. So let's go ahead and tell it to start out painting. So it's going to actually give me a lot more surface. I wonder if it's going to cut my shoulders off. Let's see what happens. Let's see if we can get myself centered a little better in the photo. If it's going to add some greenness, some yard to me, or is it just going to make my shoulder bigger? Oh, there we go. My shoulder is there. That's pretty nifty. So it did a good job doing that. Now, what we can do on this one, let's go ahead and save that. So I see now here you do cutout, and now it'll surround it, and now I can move myself over, see? So now I can take myself and move myself over, and then it should fill it in. Okay, so it's doing that. But I can do that here if I save. We'll just save it as new. And then if I want to, then just hold and press, and there I am. And now I can actually move myself over. No, I cannot move myself over. Okay, I guess that's the difference. You just do the cutout. I can't move myself over, but I can move myself over in this one. Okay, so that's the big difference. If you use a cutout here, you can actually move yourself over in the image. So now we know. Let's go ahead and save that as a new, and we will compare the two of them together. And as you can see, I was able to center myself more here, but the outpainting kind of did it here. So there you go. I don't think that's a big feature to make a difference on whether you should upgrade or not. I mean, if you even look at this photo, you can see, look at the tree. It painted the tree white, so that's not quite right either. So there you have it. I think the outpainting did enough to move me in a little better. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the AI erasing on both of these. Let's say you have an image, and let's pretend that this is a license plate where it says Craftsman, and we need to go ahead and either remove it or blur it out. So here you've got just three options. You can upscale, erase, or AI output. Here you got that AI cutout if you want to. So let's go ahead and do erase. And you can see it says it's new here on the V3. And we're going to go ahead and let them do their thinking. And then you can zoom in here on both of them. And let's go ahead and just circle. Oops. Let's go ahead and circle Craftsman, and let's get it to just see what it does. See if it'll erase that. On this one, it's wanting to erase the whole thing. Let's stop that from happening. Look at that. No, we don't want that. We want an AI erase. And let me zoom in here and circle just the Craftsman. There we go. So you can see it erased just fine here on the V5. And now we're going to erase on the Automagic V3. As you can see right here, 99%. Let's go. There we go. So you can see they both did a great job and erased it. So as you can see, there's not a whole lot of difference in AI features. Now here's one thing on the Automagic V5. I was hoping it was going to get better, but it didn't. It's the same as the V3, and that's the grammar assistance with the AI. So check this out. If I'm going to leave a comment here on this video that I played earlier in my brightness demo, I'm going to go ahead and start talking, and it's just going to be gibberish here, but it's going to leave these comments here. So I'm going to leave a comment to these videos. You can see they both dictate really well. It's a beautiful video of nature, and I love seeing all the drama that they add to it with the music. It's do a really good job. So that's enough jabberish. Now, if you want to do some text and AI assistance here, I guess that one didn't stop. You have to long press them both, and then you select all. Okay, and then you can hit the AI. Says AI writing right here on the V5. On the V3, it just has the symbol here. But you go ahead and do this, and on the V5, you can see it has a little bit more compose, summary, rewrite. So it'll summarize what was written there. You know, whatever. It can adjust the length of it. Can rewrite it. You can rewrite over here, but on both of them, you can do a proofread. And this is what I don't like, is it is too slow. Matter of fact, on the V3, it went a little faster. It's going a little faster on the V3, which is interesting. But it's just downloading the stuff from the web, so it's a little slow, and I don't care for that. I wish it was instant like you have on the Samsung Z Fold, but you can see it's done there. Now, if you hit replace, okay, it'll replace them, and then you can actually go ahead and select all again, do the AI thing, and then here you can tell it to rewrite one more time, and it's going to go through that whole thing again. On this one, let's see what happened here. Oh, I hit compose, I hit rewrite. It'll rewrite again. But now over here, you can change the style. So let's say I want to make it a humorous tone. It'll do that. And over here, you can do the same thing, humorous tone. So they both work the same. And I just expected it to be a little faster on the Automagic V5. I don't like having to wait that much for it to proofread and to give me other suggestions. So all that to say, AI is not a reason to upgrade to the Automagic V5. And then when it comes to cameras, you have a 64 megapixel zoom lens, telephoto zoom lens versus a 50 megapixel. Is there a difference? Well, let's look at the photos and find out. So as you can see here, when you look at these photos, and I pulled up one of the original ones here, and if you zoom in a little bit more on my head, you can see, I think that the V3 actually did a better job at finding that fine line of my hair, and you can see my ears not as blurred as much as the V5, but and the bokeh, I set them both at the same at 2.8. It looks like to me is that the V5 tried to beautify me a little bit more, and it would take a lot more than a little bit of AI to do that. So anyway, so on the portraits, they're about the same. I don't think you're getting any improvement there. Now here's a shot of the backyard. I think that the V5 has a little bit wider lens. I'll have to look at the specs on that and put it here on the screen. But I think the lens is a little bit wider on the V5. And you can see that it's a little bit brighter in the screen here. And then when we zoom in, I believe this is like a 3x zoom on them. They're very compatible as well. And here's zooming in a little bit more. You can see, again, they're about the same. And then on this next photo, this is a 10x zoom, and you can see they both are doing really well. So you're not getting really any improvement by going with the V5. It's all looking pretty much the same. Then on both of them, it's 50x. I don't know that you get much more of a better image on the V5. Matter of fact, it looks like you get more detail on the V3. It's allowing more light in. So I don't know. It's really hit and miss. I don't think you're getting much improvement. Now, this is 100x on both of them, and I just don't think you're getting any improvement going with the V5. So there's another category on these two phones. Zooming in, even though it's a 64 megapixel camera on the Automatic V5, I'm not seeing a whole lot of difference. So here we are at night in that same little courtyard. I really like it. It's got a lot of color, a lot of things going on. You hear the sound of the water in the background. Can you hear me okay? Is either one of them or any of them cutting out the sound and focusing on my voice? That's an interesting thing that I really am curious of. So let's go ahead and we'll get back to the studio and see how that turns out. Now in this comparison, I did add the Vivo X Fold 5 because when I did the Honor Magic against it, I failed to realize that the Vivo had a landscape and nighttime camera. So I'm using that in this one. As you can see, the Honor Magic V3 is a little darker, not quite as bright as the other two and colorful, but they all turned out really nice and they've got a lot of dynamic range. Now zooming in on all three of them, this is just a 3x. You can still see the same thing. The Honor Magic V5 and the Fold 5 are right there, I think, hand in hand, where the V3 is still a little more darker than the other two, adding a little more color, but I think they all three look great, and they all three are really clear. But you can see that the Vivo still suffers a little bit of lens flare from the lighting. Now I did this portrait shot with all three of them. The two Honors are set at 2.8 f-stop, and I didn't adjust the Vivo, but you can actually adjust that as well. They all did really well. I think the Vivo is just a little too bright for my taste. Now here's a 10x zoom at night, and you can see there's still a bit of lens flare on the Vivo, but they all did really well, and I think the Honor Magic V3 is really holding its own.
Now, they all three took a different approach on this, and the V3 is a little too dark and colorful for my taste. The Honor Magic V5 is, I think, right on par, and the X Fold 5, it's a little bright, but it does give it a bit more clarity, so I think it's a draw between the V5 and the Fold 5. And one final shot here, just from a distance, you can see they all pretty much do the same thing. Dark on the V3, kind of perfect right there on the V5, and a little brighter on the Fold 5. So between the Fold 5 and the V5, though, it's pretty much a draw. You just have to pick your favorite. But will say definitely on video, I think the Vivo really is supreme here. You can see the clarity there. For some reason, the Honor Magic V5 is not as clear, and it doesn't even seem to be as clear as the Magic V5. Maybe it's a setting that I missed or something, but I'm not quite sure what it is. I like the V3 better than the V5 on this video anyway, but the X Fold 5 is the supreme here on video. And if you notice here too, even on lens flare, there's no lens flare on the video. Next up, let's talk about performance between the Honor Magic V3 and V5.
So when it really comes down to performance, you will get a little faster speeds out of the V5 versus the V3 simply because of the Elite chip. And then when you want to perform it against other phones, it's going to beat them all simply because it does have that chip. However, I've got to say the V3 has outperformed a lot of them already before the Elite chip, and even against the Elite chip when you're talking about like the Z Fold 7 that does its throttling when it really gets to processing. Neither one of these seem to throttle as much. So you still get better performance out of this. So when you compare this to all the other foldables, the V3 still stands up, I believe, in today's market. So here's the big question. Does the Honor Magic Stylus work on both? Well, here's your Honor Magic V3. As you can see, it works just fine here. And we can open up notes and we can write right on there. If I can write very well. And if you can't, you could just double tap the button that's on here and you can erase. Check that out. So it works just fine. So the question is, does it work on the inside? Well, let's open it up and find out. So we open up this phone here on the V3 and we can make it right. Oh, you got to select your utensil. There you go. And does this mess up my line whatsoever? No. You can't hardly, you can feel the dip there a little bit, but it does not hinder anything whatsoever. And again, you could just erase it if you want to. So now what about over here on the V5? Does it work? There you go. There's your answer. It works just fine. How about on the inside? Let's open this bad boy up and let's see if it works on the inside. And as you can see, it works on the inside just as well. So there's your answer. You've got Honor Magic V5 and the V3 both work with the Honor Magic Stylus. So let's take a quick look here at the software on both of these. We'll go into settings and go to about on both of them. You can see here you got Magic OS 9 here on both of them. Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 3 on the V3 versus 8 Elite on the Honor Magic V5. 16 gigabytes of RAM on the V5. And then you got 12 gigabytes of RAM on the Honor Magic V3. And then, of course, both of them can use additional 16 and 12 for turbo RAM to speed things up. Then you have a 5820 milliamp hour battery, so 5,820 versus 5150, so quite a bit smaller on the Honor Magic V3. So there's a big difference there in battery. And then if we look at the software, we've got Magic OS 9.01 and 15 Android. And on this one, we got 9.01 and 15. So the software isn't quite the same. Now, where does that make a difference? Is it in the multitasking? Let's take a quick peek at multitasking on both of these. So we're going to open them up and we're going to multitask real quick and see the differences between the two of them. And there is quite a bit, or at least one big major difference between the two of these in multitasking. So if we just go ahead and open up an app on both of them, there we go. And we could take and split that app just by dragging it here to the side. We can go to either side. It doesn't really matter. And then you can grab a second app. There you go. Grab a second one. And there you go. So you've got two apps, two browsers open on both of them. You can see I was looking at the specs there. And then if you want a third app on the Honor Magic V3, you drag here from the side, and then you can go ahead and select, let's do gallery. I take my gallery and try to drag it. It looks like it's moving, but if you go and you just replace it is all it does. So in order to actually use a third app, you got to actually just tap it and it becomes a floater here. So you can see you can float it. You can put it wherever you want it on the screen. So that's how you use three apps on the V3. Over here on the V5, you can take and open this up and you can grab a third app and look at this. It makes space for it. See there? It'll make space for it. So now you got the three apps side by side and you can resize these. So that one's a full page if you want to. Snap over here, you can resize that one. So that one's a full page. And then same thing. So you have all three full page split at what's called a 90-10 split. And over here, you can't do that. The best you can do is open up a floater. So let's go ahead and do a speed test on both of these on Wi-Fi before we wrap these things up. So on the Honor Magic V3, we'll go ahead and let it run through its speed test. And as you know, I have 400 down here in my home and up to 10 uploads. So it's pretty slow, but I'm kind of excited because we are getting fiber and it's supposed to be installed in the next week or so. And that's pretty lousy. And that's why I want the fiber, is because my internet in this house goes up and down. So that may not be the V3 doing that. So we'll go with the V5. And as you can see, yeah, the rate of speed right now is pretty poor here in my home. And you can see they're both running off the same network. And you're getting maybe a little bit better speed out of the V5. But again, that's just going to be depend on the time of day and what kind of speed I get here in my home right now. So that's not something you can really judge on. So I believe they both have very similar, if not the exact same radio bands. So you're not having any difference in coverage on either one of these devices. Now it's time for me to tell you what I think. Would I upgrade? Well, I do, simply because I review these things and I love the beauty of this thing. And the fact that it's thinner and faster is a great thing for me. But is there advantage out of owning the V5 versus the V3? I have to say no, not when they both perform almost identical as you saw in this video. And I got to tell you, when you can get this thing for under $1,000, the V3, versus this one closer to $2,000, why not go for the V3 for half the price? Now, I'm sorry, some of you, that's not what you wanted to hear. And some of you want to just to upgrade. You know, that's fine too. And for those of you that have not entered the foldable market yet, I would recommend starting off with the V3, because this is an excellent phone and I believe it still outperforms most of the phones out there today, up into including the Z Fold 7. But that's just my opinion. Now it's time to hear from you. Let me know down in the comments, what do you think? Were you disappointed? Was it kind of what you expected? Did you upgrade to the V5 from the V3? Have you seen a big difference? Let me know down in the comments. I want to hear from you. Now, I've got plenty of battles on the V5 against other phones, like I just did the one on the Vivo X Fold 5. You can check that video out here. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because I have a lot more content and more to come. So until then, have a wonderful day and God bless.